If someone wants to at least get started with a framework,
Mhm.
what are the basic elements that every pitch deck should have?
That's a really good question. I think there's a couple of different ways to answer this because there's of course certain slides that are expected to be in there. Problem statement, solution statement, business model, financial projections, and so on. I could bore your audience going into all of those. There's typically we create decks that are around 14 to 16 slides, give or take. But there's something else to that question about what should be in a pitch deck. And part of that is the understanding of what's the point of the pitch deck and understanding who the audience is that you're writing this for. It's kind of a necessary evil. I don't know if, founders understand why they're doing it. They just feel it's something that they have to do, which in a lot of cases they do, unless they have a very strong personal network of investors and can have that kind of handshake meeting and just talk through different ideas. But one of the things I try to keep in mind when approaching a pitch deck is that when a startup is going out to raise capital in exchange for equity ownership of their business, essentially what they're doing is they're going out there to sell their business. They're pitching the sale of their business to a very specific type of audience who sees tons of pitch decks day in and day out. And if they're anything like resumes, which they are, it can be very, very difficult to stand out. Understanding how that investor mindset generally works is that you get one shot, and you get, if you're lucky, somebody will take a matter of seconds to go through the pitch deck, and if you can't hook them within the first 3 or 4 slides, then you've lost that chance with them. So I think that's a big part of it. And another facet that goes into what goes into a pitch deck is, what are you asking for and how are you going to use it? And by this, I mean, the money that you're asking for. If you're asking for $1 million, why did you pick $1 million? Is it because that's a nice round number? Is that, the social thing to do, or is it that you actually have the plan behind that and a breakdown of how you're going to use those funds to move your startup from where it is today to where it's going to be in whatever given period of time? So the pitch deck has to be a well thought out marketing tool, essentially, of saying, this is where we are, this is what we do, this is what we want to do, this is why we need support to do this. And so when it comes to things like your ask and use of fund slides, demonstrating some level of accountability and planning and thought and all of that is absolutely crucial. And because you're going to go through those questions in your investor meetings and so forth, they're going to ask you, they're going to grill you on every aspect of it and do their diligence before they even think about cutting you a check. A couple other things I can think of that are really important to highlight, and not just for the pitch deck, but for entrepreneurs that are at the ideation stage of building their startup, is understanding what makes you different and making sure that comes across. What are your differentiators as a business? Because chances are, there's already somebody out there or some company out there that's doing what you're doing in a similar manner. There's, direct competitors, and then there are competitive alternatives. And what you are bringing to the table with your idea may be innovative. It doesn't mean it always has to be, some radical idea that nobody has ever done before. And I had a conversation with a fundraising partner of mine from the VC space about this. And, his perspective is if he sees a startup that has this, idea, like, or let's call it radical or extremely innovative or whatever, that hasn't really been teased out before in a market, it's almost an automatic no for him, because there's no telling whether or not that's actually, that idea has legs, unless you have traction, and you're getting customers and so forth. Otherwise, it's hugely risky. But you can be doing something similar to what already exists in the market, but you can just do it in a different way. It could be better, it could be faster, it could be cheaper, any of those things, and that's sufficient. But showing what makes you different, and that's another key part of the deck there
Mhm.
as well.